Hey everybody, I'm Curtis Eustace Photography, and what I've got today is the GFX50s design flaw that will kill your camera. I'm not talking you can fix it, it's done for. What is it? It's this. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's this. So what is that? Well, let me flip it over. So what it is it's the bottom plate to your GFX50s. And it's where the tripod screws into the actual bottom plate of the camera. So here's my GFX. And then that is the bottom to the camera. Yeah, you're not supposed to see that stuff. That stuff's supposed to be like behind the plate. And how it happened. So, it's always a good question. How does something like this happen? Well, it is my fault. I'm going to tell you that right now. This is not something that's Fuji's fault as far as how it happened. It's my fault. I had it mounted on a Manfrotto Neotech tripod. And it was on its lowest setting, as close to the floor as possible. On the camera, I had mounted a Fuji 120mm macro lens made specifically for the GFX50s and the 50R. On top of that, on top of the camera, I had a flash trigger. I was working in a small little studio area, taking a photograph of a musical instrument. Now the tripod, it was on its lowest. It had the macro lens on. The tripod plate was attached to the bottom of the camera. The tripod was not sandbagged. Okay, so typically I'll sandbag a tripod. The Neotech is kind of weird in that it doesn't have any cross supports, so it's just legs. But if I had put a sandbag on at least one or two legs, this may have been prevented. I don't know. And again, this was my fault. So I had it close to my chair. I was tethering to my Mac into Capture One. I had taken all the photographs and I backed my chair up and knocked it over. Now the tripod was only maybe 2.5 feet off the ground. It had the lens on it and it fell over onto carpet and onto a soft blanket. And then the camera separated from the tripod. I didn't know at first what it was. I thought something had just, the plate had popped off or something like that. But no, the whole bottom plate had popped off. So I emailed Fuji parts department and I said, can I get this bottom plate? Because there's screws all inside this plate. And I thought, well, I could just unscrew it and take it off and replace that bottom plate. Emailed Fuji. Yes, they had the plate. It was $50, but they recommended that I send it off to Fuji to have the back focus checked and make sure that since it got knocked over, everything was okay. Fine. Shipped it off to Fuji. Fuji came back after a couple weeks and they said, unfortunately, it was more involved than just replacing the bottom plate of the camera, and that I actually had to replace the camera. The camera was, that was a killer defect, that it could not be repaired. So if you do a lot of tripod work, if you do landscape photography and things like that, this is the plate that the camera is, your tripod socket's right there. So that's where you screw it in. And then it is connected just with that. And this is magnesium. It's not plastic or anything like that. It's magnesium, but magnesium is sort of brittle and it just snapped. And it wasn't a hard fall. Now, I get that it was a lot of weight. The 120mm macro lens is a heavy lens and it probably just torqued it right that it snapped it. But when you look at this plate is really, really thin. And that this where your tripod screws into it is just connected. I don't even know how it's connected. I guess it's glued or something. I am not sure. Well, it's got 4 little screws. So it's got 4 little screws that hold it into the plate. And when you actually tighten it down onto the plate, I guess it pulls this towards it so it keeps it in place. I was really disappointed with the fact that this was so thin and that that's all it was. I've never had an issue like this with Sony's. I've never had an issue like this with Nikon's. I shot Canon for 7 years in a commercial environment on camera stands. Never had an issue like this. And cameras, I've knocked over cameras before because sometimes I'm a klutz, okay? So I've never had this happen. This is just so weird. Fuji came back and said, yeah, we'll replace your camera. We'll sell you a camera for, I think it was $4,300. It wasn't a refurbished, it was a new camera, but they had some other designation to it, so it wasn't like refurbished or anything like that, but it had some sort of designation to it that they could sell it through the parts department and things like that. So if you have a GFX50 and you're working on a tripod, you may want to take a look about this. If you're thinking about a GFX50s, you may want to consider a different camera that's a little sturdier. I don't know if the GFX100, the 100 megapixel one, has the same issue or not. It didn't seem like that they were surprised about this, that this may be sort of a normal occurrence. So if that's the case, you're buying a $5,000 camera, $4,000 something camera, plus lenses, and it was a big investment, and then this will kill it. It killed mine. Now, the good news is the camera still works. So I can turn it on, everything. I don't have a lens on it now, but it still works. It works fine. So I told Fuji, no, I'm not going to replace it. Just send me the camera back. And what I'm doing now is I sold the lenses, all my lenses, all the peripherals, and I bought a Nikon Z7. I love Nikon. I've had Fuji, I've had Sony, and so I decided to go back to a Nikon Z7 to replace it. It's 46 megapixels. I love the glass, Nikon glass. I love the color science from Nikon. And then this GFX50, I'm going to glue this plate back on the bottom. Not going to attach it to a tripod, but what I have is a Cambo Actis, and so, which is like a technical camera. I have a video in my, I'll try to put a link to it, to the video about my Cambo Actis. It's an old video, so please forgive the age of the video. But the Cambo Actis, I can connect this straight to the Cambo Actis. It doesn't require me to have a plate on the bottom that's secure for a tripod. So the Cambo Actis is actually attached to the tripod itself. So I can just use this, and the Cambo Actis uses large format lenses, like 4x5 lenses and things like that, which I already have. I've got the whole system for it. And this is basically just going to be like a digital back for that Cambo Actis. So it is what it is, right? So just beware if you have a habit of picking up a tripod and leaving the camera on the top of the tripod. If you got a lot of weight on it, it might snap it. So thanks for watching. If this has been helpful, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me 2 thumbs down. Click it twice. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.